Hi, Diane-san. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Hi, shall we get started now?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, so let me start my presentation. Let me share my screen.
Okay. Yes, next speaker is Diane-san. Diane-san is a product designer of Metal. Hi, Diane-san's speech theme is driving product strategy as a designer. Yeah.
Great, thank
Okay,
you.
we can see your
Okay, perfect.
document. No problem.
Hi,
So,
my name,
Diane-san, please.
I'm sorry. Oh, okay.
Yeah, go
Hi.
ahead, please.
Okay, thank you. All right. Hi, my name is Diane Cronenwett, and I've been a user experience designer for over 15 years, and I'm currently at Meta. Today, I'm talking about driving product strategy as an individual contributor designer. So, what is a designer doing driving product strategy? Let me provide more context. In the career growth of a user experience designer, when you're first starting out, the work you do might be feature level and well-defined. As you move into mid-level roles, you'll take on more ambiguous work with undefined requirements. In more senior roles, you'll be called upon to weigh in on larger strategy discussions. And in some cases, drive business and product strategy through design. While design managers also do some of this work, it's not uncommon for IC leads and lead-level IC designers to contribute to this defining of product strategy. I'm so excited to talk to you about this topic because I want to assure you that yes, designers drive product strategy. This is an especially personal topic for me, as I've heard a lot of designers over the years tell me that they feel like they don't have enough control over the product decisions. Because of the nature of product development lifecycle, design is in the middle. It feels like we're in between product managers making product decisions and engineers implementing those decisions. When you feel like you're in the middle, it's easy to feel like your ideas are overruled by others on the project team. I know how that feels because I also used to feel this way. In fact, I thought about making a career switch to product management. I thought I'd have more control over the product as a product manager because I had such little control as a designer. I've been there and I felt it. Fast forward to where I am today, and I have more influence over the product than anybody on my project team. In one case, I drove the product strategy by combining two products into an integration that led to a 3-year roadmap and engineering realignment to support the effort. In another case, I took a product with 700,000 users, reimagined it, relaunched it, which led to acquiring 28 million users within 6 months. In these scenarios, I was able to influence the product strategy and direction as an IC designer, and you can too. You can be as influential in shaping product strategy from wherever you are in your career. Today, I'm going to dive into what product strategy is, and why designers are uniquely positioned to drive it, and share the framework for how to develop a product strategy for your own projects and in your own organizations. Before I start, I want to share a little bit about my background. I studied experimental psychology as an undergrad and library science and informatics for my graduate studies. I don't have a typical design background, as in I didn't go to design school. I learned everything on the job. My first job was at an agency where I did not get the chance to ship my own products, so I moved into an in-house designer role. I spent most of my career working in large tech companies, designing products for millions, and in some cases, billions of people. I also teach design courses on LinkedIn. I love sharing my knowledge with others, as so many have shared their knowledge with me. The concepts I'm talking about today are drawn from my own experiences working in product development and bringing products to market. So, what do I mean when I talk about product strategy? I'm going to use a very basic definition, the one on Wikipedia. Wikipedia defines product strategy as the high-level plan for developing products that support the business strategy. Furthermore, the definition continues with describing the vision of the future of the product. This is where our superpowers as designers come in. Not only do we have the power to understand business and customers, but we have the ability to make that vision real through design. But designing a vision isn't enough. If we look at our definition, product strategy is brought to life through product roadmaps. Product roadmaps are what product teams use to ship a product to customers. Creating the vision is only the first step. Using your design as the product roadmap is the second. And this is what separates a design from sitting on a shelf to a design being executable in the form of a strategy. Let me give you an example. Remember how I said earlier that I felt like I had no influence over the product strategy? I was constantly being overruled by both engineers and product managers on how to approach the design, and my opinions were being ignored. I talked to my product manager one-on-one, and I asked him why no one listened to me. He said, because your design is too big. He pointed out that all of my ideas were too futuristic and no one knew how to ship what I was proposing. His suggestion was to think like an engineer and imagine what it means to take my design and create it one line of code at a time. This revelation changed my approach to creating a product vision. I was creating design that my engineers didn't know how to build or execute. I realized that my designs would always live in a wireframe if I could not find a way to make it achievable to build. For your design to be truly driving product strategy, it needs to be a roadmap. The design should be both aspirational and achievable through milestones. Let's dive into the key steps to creating a design-based product strategy that is aligned with business goals and achievable. The first is to approach your design with an openness to surprise. This is easy to say, but hard to do. Sometimes designers have a confirmation bias toward their own thoughts and opinions. This is the enemy of a good strategy. It's okay to have a hypothesis, but it's not okay to ignore evidence that is showing otherwise. Be open to those surprises that emerge when a user reacts differently to the design, or if the data is not leading you to where you thought it would. Your own opinion doesn't matter as much as how the user feels about the product design. The actionable takeaway here is to have a colleague or another party be a neutral partner to hear out your thoughts and conclusions. This person can provide more input into how you're thinking about things and where the data is leading you. The second is to deeply understand the product space. It seems obvious, but you should understand how your product works to the level of detail that you can explain it to someone else. Even if you are not the primary user of the product, understanding all of the functionalities will help you gain subject matter expertise and more credibility from your product and engineering counterparts. For example, I worked in a fairly complex product space, and the workflows were not something I would normally understand. I read the technical documentation and watched tutorials to further understand how people use products like this. Conducting a competitive analysis of similar apps and experience is also helpful in this stage. The actionable takeaway here is to immerse yourself in everything and anything that will help you better understand your product offering. Your goal is to become an expert in the product. The third step is to immerse yourself in quantitative data. A good strategy is a blend of qualitative data from users and quantitative data from analytics. You need both to be able to make decisions on what the product should do and where it should go in the future. If we look back at the definition we use from Wikipedia, measuring success is a key component of setting up a product strategy. We want to understand what success looks like to determine whether the design was successful and to show improvement. Look for patterns in the data and determine which areas people seem to be getting stuck on. Where are people dropping off, or where there's low usage? If you do not have analytical data, or if your product does not collect metrics, you will want to measure the design in some way. It might be the time it takes for task completion or the amount of workflow steps compared to a competitive offering. The fourth is to understand your customers. After reviewing the quantitative data available, you should have a better understanding of what is happening with your product. To balance the quantitative data, we also want qualitative data to decide on what's needed for the product. Going deep on understanding your customers and their needs are important to defining a product strategy. Data by itself tells us something is happening, but it does not tell us why. Going deep into understanding customers and their needs is a must-have. Skipping this step means we might be designing products that no one will use. As designers, this is something we are already good at, as empathy and customer understanding is part of a user-centered design process. Typical activities in this step are to interview subject matter experts and customers and observe them using your product. If your product is a workflow type enterprise product, this could be in the form of a contextual inquiry or an open-ended interview. Feedback from users is useful to gather an understanding of what is happening from the product perspective and any enhancements that are needed. If you don't have access to customers or data, you'll have to use secondary sources. Reading industry white papers, competitive product blog posts, research articles, customer feedback forums, literally anything you can find that will help you understand the product and the market. The goal is to understand both the people and the market and the product that it's serving. For example, I was working on a project that was outdated by most people's standards. Our team wasn't sure if the product had a modern need. Our team had old data to work from, but it wasn't very useful to us, and we also didn't have a researcher. The first thing I did was look at competitive apps in the space, their usage, and I saw that there were millions of people worldwide using these apps. I also read Apple and Android reviews for the apps to get a sense of what people were looking for in these types of apps. What types of features are they looking for? The conclusion I came to was that there was a need for the experience we were building, and we had proof that there were active users of similar experiences, including the markets they served. There's a lot of data out there if you look for it. From the research and data you've gathered, there should be some exciting and interesting insights. The fifth step is to review and analyze those insights. Some of these insights might be in the form of new features or validation of some initial hypotheses. Synthesize your findings and create artifacts to help tell the story of what you learned. Synthesis can take many forms, like affinity mapping and organizing themes. Once you've sorted it all out, visualize it in a format that is clear to stakeholders on where the opportunity is. Leverage your design skills to communicate these findings to your team. The findings could be visualized in the form of a system map or a user experience journey to highlight these new insights. The sixth step is to design the future and test it. Design the optimal user experience that anyone using the product would want, and put this in front of users to get feedback early and often. Now, let's talk about what designing the future means. After reviewing everything, some really good ideas will emerge that might be longer term. The goal is to distill the ideas and insights that are most aligned to what the business is trying to accomplish. Once you've created wireframes addressing the future, it's time to get feedback from consumers on this idea. The concept testing can range from a static mock-up to a sketch or a full fidelity prototype. Validate your design hypothesis and ideas to see if you're on the right track or if you've interpreted your initial data correctly. This might take a few iterations depending on how different the ideas are from how the consumers are reacting. Every design element and decision might have implications for the business in this vision state. So you'll want to be intentional on how this is represented in your wireframes when you're driving product strategy. For example, free shipping might be something users want, but from the business perspective, it may not be feasible. It doesn't mean you should not propose this as a design vision, but you should consider how to make free shipping a good thing for both the business and the consumer. Maybe offering free shipping up to a certain amount or free shipping on specific product offerings. Consider these trade-offs in your design. The seventh step is to talk to your engineers and collaborate to find common ground. Find out which parts of your design is difficult to build and what is doable in the short term. Walk engineers through the design and come up with achievable solutions. The goal here is to make sure that all elements in your design can be accounted for technically. If you're proposing a design that engineers say is not possible or hard, ask follow-up questions. When you start asking more specific questions, this leads to more problem solving. Engineers are a primary stakeholder when it comes to visionary product strategy initiatives. So vetting everything through them helps to find some of those gaps early, and you can find out which things are more futuristic and which things are closer term. And this helps set you up for the next step. Asking technical questions if you're not technical can be daunting. That's all right. You will become much more comfortable the more you do it. The last step is to milestone your design to make it executable. Now, this is the part where you want to make sure that your design is shippable. Strategy without execution is just an idea. To show how the strategy will work through design, break down your design into different milestones for execution, typically 2 to 3 years out. If aiming for a 3-year strategy, you'll show the first milestone of the bare minimum most MVP design, excuse me. For the second milestone, or year 2, adding in elements the engineer said was possible in the near term. And for year 3, show the full design with the full visionary functionality. Include key business metrics and goals you're driving with this approach. This is what ties it back to the business and how your design is driving the product strategy. In my work, I take it a step further and I break out the work by quarter in terms of prioritizing user experience needs. I do this to make sure that the product is built in the right order. If the design is not guiding the product development process, sometimes the less important items might be built first, and it might not be the right foundational approach to the design. I'll share an example from my personal experience. I had designed a product strategy which touched multiple parts of the experience, including a setup flow and a help and onboarding experience. The team wanted to start with the help and onboarding experience since that was the easiest from the technical perspective. I pointed out that if we started with the setup flow and fixed the problems there would be less need for help and onboarding. Everyone agreed with this logic, but this is the kind of input that designers should have to drive prioritization of how the product strategy gets executed. The other important aspect of this process is selling the vision and strategy to key executive stakeholders and decision makers. I always include the proposed milestones in these types of presentations because it creates a more realistic understanding of what we're doing and how. It gives people more confidence, and typically at these types of meetings, engineers are present and they're supporting the design since they help support milestoning it. Selling the vision requires a lot of storytelling and presenting the information in a way that executives and partners understand. They need to understand why it's important and how it will impact the business and consumers. Spend time crafting the right story, and that will be critical in getting adoption from the team. We've walked through what product strategy is and how designers are uniquely positioned to drive it. I shared a framework and steps to develop a product strategy. This approach has helped me and has been good guidelines for how to ship a product strategy and design toward one. I hope that there's some takeaways for you that will help you in driving your strategy in your own projects and in your own organizations. Thank you so much for listening, and feel free to look me up on LinkedIn, and we can continue the conversation there.
Hi, thank you, Diane. Hi, everyone. If you have a question, please post on Q&A. Yeah, Diane, may I ask a question?
Sure.
Yeah, would you please share your experience, how you communicate with engineers? Yeah,
yes.
It is very hard to communicate with engineer for me. There are
Yes.
a lonely wolf person or going my way engineer. It's difficult to communicate sometimes.
Yeah, I totally understand. I also had difficulty in talking with engineers because I'm not technical and I don't have a technical background. So what I found is asking a question like, can we do this? And then when they say, oh, that's hard, then I just keep asking follow-ups like, why is it hard? And then sometimes they'll say, oh, we'd have to build a data pipeline for this. And then I say, well, how long would that take? Is that hard to do? And then they would say, they might say something like, oh, it's not hard to do, but we need to build this other thing. And so I just keep following what they keep saying and I just write everything down. And then I ask them, okay, well, if we were to do it this way, is that the only way? And then usually what happens is they start kind of problem solving with you, like, oh, well, I guess we could do it a different way if we get the same outcome. And so I try to just ask the questions, even if I don't understand 100% what they're saying. I just want to repeat what I've heard and then ask questions that are more related to what I'm most interested in, like how much time does it take, or is there anything I can do in the design to amend it so we can get it done faster? So it's mostly just asking a lot of questions and not always understanding the answer, but just knowing, just asking enough to figure out what I need for my, for what I need to accomplish. But it wasn't easy. It took a lot of time to get used to being uncomfortable, asking very hard technical questions all the time. So.
Okay, thank you very much. And there are many archive viewers this time after today the session. Please show your SNS or contact address again.
Me?
Yes.
Oh,
Because
sure.
Because there are many archive viewers.
Okay. Yeah. You can reach me on LinkedIn at Diane Cronenwett. That's mostly how I interact with folks in the field. So yeah, just my full name is on LinkedIn. I'm also on Twitter too, but less on Twitter.
Okay. Okay.
Great. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciated the opportunity to speak. And sounds great.
Okay. If anyone have a question, I send you the message.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Diane-san, thank you very much.
Right.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye. Hi, thank you, everyone. Next session is Regional Leader Active Report by Mariana-san. So we have a 10 minutes break. After 10 minutes, we will start the Regional Leader Activity Report. Yeah. Take a 10 minutes break, please.